And my main point when I came to all the traditions, when I went, for example, because I spent time in India and I went to deal with the Buddhist tradition, I wanted to understand. I spent time with the Dalai Lama trying to understand the spirituality. I spent time with priests from the theologian, liberation theology in South America, understanding what they wanted to do. What I understood from the Jewish tradition, the Buddhist tradition, and even my own tradition is not to look at the world the way it is and to adapt myself to it, but in the name of my values and my ethics is to change the world for the better. It's not to look at the world and say, oh, the world is changing, let us change our religion. No, we have to change our mind, but there are principles that are not negotiable. Justice, dignity, freedom, ethics, to respect nature. So it's not because the world is changing that we have to run after the world the way it is and to say, you know what, I'm a modern. I'm doing as all the people are doing. So to be consumerists because it's time of consumption. To be selective in the way we deal with the world. And then I realized, and this is the main theme of the book, radical reform meant that I don't want, and this was my discovery after 20 years, which was quite deep and difficult, is there are two types of reform. There is one which is adaptational reform, that you adapt yourself to the world and you try to catch up. And it's coming from a defensive posture and at the same time a minority complex or an inferiority complex. Because it's so good over there, we do the same. Because they have power, let us do the same. Because the world is changing, let us catch up. So defensive as to the principle and always catching up. So it's adaptational reform. And I came to a point where I think we have to advocate, and this is the very essence of all the philosophies, and not only coming from spirituality and religions, atheists, agnostics, religious people, or spiritual people, when they come with ethics is to say, we need a transformational reform, not an adaptational reform, is to reform in order to change the world for the better. So how are we going to deal with our text to make up our mind to find new answers for new challenges that are helping us to have a better life? It's not only to adapt ourselves to the democratic process, but it's to think about the democratic process to go from democratic governance to good governance. And good governance is the ethical dimension that is needed. So it was a critical take within connecting open and critical rationality with faith and faithfulness to principles. How are we going to do this? And in all the philosophical trend and environment, it's called applied ethics. So ethics is what are the values that you are trying to reach. For example, if I'm a European, what I want today, let alone being a Muslim, but as a human being, I want more ethics in economy. I want more ethics in politics. I want more ethics in ecology, environment. This is my main point. I want my ethics to help me to be a better person, to be a better citizen, and to be a better human being, respecting nature, respecting others, respecting differences, and respecting the world the way it is. So the main point was this, and this is where I started to work transversally. It's not for Western Muslims only, and it's not for Muslims living in Muslim majority countries. It's for every human being, being critical as to our tradition. And it's called Islamic ethics and liberation. Liberating our minds, liberating our hearts, liberating our being from any kind of alienation. Meaning by this, that the alienation could be a self-alienation. When you put yourself on the defensive, then you nurture the victim mentality, you are self-alienating yourself. So it's to be assertive and to know what is your memory, what is your history, what are your values. And not to look at the West, and not to look at the others as the dominant and us as the victims. No, to be the subject of our own history. Meaning intellectually, spiritually, socially stand up. Now it's time to change. With all this, what I have been trying to do in the field of Western Muslims is to say, look, I myself is a product of this Western experience, born and raised in Switzerland almost 50 years ago. And I still have some of my fellow citizens coming to say, are you a true Swiss citizen? Questioning my citizenship because they see too much of Islam in my being. And this is where I started the whole discussion. I'm not going to let anyone define me and reduce me to the object of her or his perception. I'm the subject of my history. So now I want to reconcile myself with my past, my memory, and my presence here. Meaning coming back to the scriptural sources, but not only, and also the history of my family and the history of our societies. Why are we here and what are we trying to do? And the first thing that I started to say when I was talking about Western Muslims is really about anything which has to do with this host society, and you are an immigrant, and after 4 generations, when you are a Muslim, you are a citizen with an immigrant background for 4 generations. I say that stop now here. We stop it now, and we start by saying, look, I was born in the country. Some of the people who are here, it's the 2nd, the 3rd generation. So now not only they have to say, but to have they feel, this is home. You are at home, and you are Europeans, and you are Belgium, and you are British, and you are French, and you are Dutch. You are at home. So it's to define something which is a historical experience. Change your mind. Don't have your heart there and your body here. Reconcile your heart and your body. This is home. And when you look at the people around you and you look at this society, you should be able to say, my people. Not them and us. And if you have people saying you and us, the first question to say, who is this us you are talking about? Who are you that you are telling me us and you are putting me outside this us? Good news, I am one of you us. I'm one of you because this is home for me. But not only is a discourse, it's a feeling. And the way we do is this, and we deal with it, it's something which is very important. It's not against Islam to abide by the law of the country. It's in the name of my religion that I abide by the law of the country because these laws are my laws. And anyone who is telling you the only time when I'm going to resist to the law of the country, it's if these laws are not respecting my dignity and the 2 main principles, freedom of conscience and freedom of worship. My identity is to be a European by culture. But I don't deny the fact that I am a Muslim, so I'm a Muslim by religion. And I don't deny the fact that I'm a Swiss, so I'm a Swiss by nationality. And I don't deny the fact that I have a richness which is coming with me, that I'm bringing to Europe, and that Europe should understand it's a gift, that I'm Egyptian by memory. And it's great to come with something from Egypt to help the European countries to get some richness. And it's also, it's very easy for an Egyptian, because when you are coming with the Egyptian civilizations, no one can tell you what it is all about. I say, you don't know about the Egyptians. So someone who is telling you this is more saying something about his or her ignorance that have the greatness of this Egyptian civilization. So it's easy, but it's not always easy when you are Turkish, when you are Moroccan, when you are Algerian. Some people don't know about the richness of the Moroccan civilization and culture. Now they start getting it with tagine and some exotic food. And they like it. Algerian, North African, Pakistani, all these cultures are getting something. And this is why I came with something which is essential for our common future. We all have multiple identities. And if you reduce yourself by saying, I'm only one thing, you are reducing yourself on a defensive mode, which is not good for yourself. and the populist trends that are now winning everywhere in Europe, they are doing exactly this. They are creating emotional politics and bathing their policy on fear and targeting the people, saying they are not like us, so we have only one identity, reducing the identity to something. And I'm saying to the citizens, the European citizens, Muslims and people of other faiths, Christian and whatever, don't let the populists reduce your identity to one single identity, because this is very dangerous. You have multiple identities and you have to open up. And the Muslims should understand that they are not only Muslim. They are Belgian by nationality and they are European now by culture. And there is nothing wrong to add languages to languages. By speaking Dutch, by speaking French, by speaking Arabic, by speaking whatever, add to your identity and don't subtract, because this subtraction is problematic. This is exactly what the xenophobic attitude is doing, reducing yourself to one dimension. This is me. The success of integration is to stop talking about integration. So you have to stop asking the people, when are you going to integrate? I am integrated. Your mind should integrate that I am integrated, that I'm at home now. And I'm dealing with it in this way. So we have to stop and we have to come with a key word, a new one, which is to go from integration to contribution. Be an active citizen. Be someone who is contributing in all the fields, not only when it comes to Islam we saw Muslims or we see Muslims, when we talk about education, civil rights, society, any new topic, anything which is important for my society is my concern. So when it comes, for example, when we deal with some people, the only thing that they think we have to talk about when it comes to women is the right to wear the headscarf. My position on this is the position of 80% of the European countries, 89% of the European countries. It's against Islam to impose onto a woman to wear the headscarf is against human rights to impose onto a woman to take it off. Let the people do what they have to do, what they want to do. It's not your business, the way I dress. And if I want to, no, that's the point. But my main problem is not every time I speak about women, I speak about the way they dress. I have a concern which is a common concern. Why is it that in our societies in Europe now, we are in 2012. Why is it that a woman with the same skills and the same study and the same years of study get in the great majority of the works and the jobs 70% less than a man? This is my main concern. My main concern is not tell me the way I have to dress. No, come to why are we facing discriminations in salaries? This is the right question to ask. Why are you putting all your concern in culturalizing the issue of women in our society? The main discussion is, are they have the same access to job market? Are we talking about financial independence? And for the same skills, I want the same salary. This is my concern. This is why we have to come together. But we keep on targeting the Muslim by saying, tell me the way you dress. I will tell you the way you are free in my mind. What a reductive way of dealing with the issue. What a reductive way. And very often, the Muslims themselves, they fall into the trap by keeping on this discussion saying, I don't want to talk about this. It's not of your business. If I decided to wear this the way I wear it, that's my business. Now, if there is, and I will be the first to say it, if there is a father or a brother or a family imposing into a woman to wear the headscarf, I will be on her side to say, it's not your business the way your daughter and the way your sister is dressed. Let her decide for herself. This is a personal choice. It's not for you to tell her the way she has to dress. Why? Because it's an act of faith, and there is no compulsion in any act of faith. Let the people decide. But we have to be consistent with this, because many Muslims are happy with the first thing I said, and when I say this, oh, not clear. over the last few months, I have been connecting also all my work with what is happening in the Muslim majority countries and what we call the Arab Spring and revolutions. I don't call them revolutions, I don't call it an Arab Spring. I'm just talking about an Arab awakening, and I'm talking about uprisings, not yet achieved revolution. I have a question mark on what is happening still, even though there is a difference between the countries, and we have to be very, very much aware of what is happening in Tunisia and evolving, which is quite interesting in Tunisia. It's completely different from Egypt, and the situation is quite very worrying over there, and very worrying and very sad in Syria. While let me say that I don't want a military intervention, but I think that the West could have been much more, could have done much more to protect the civilians by putting more pressure on this government that is killing innocent people. And we know this from the very first week, torturing and killing young boys aged 12 or 15. So this is unacceptable. But what is happening now in Syria, in Libya, in other countries, it's quite worrying, and I think that it might be that we are facing now one success and many failures or unachieved revolution. The point here is something which is quite interesting for me, and let me bring to the four main points, and I will stop. It will be my conclusion, but I want you to connect this because I'm also dealing with Muslim majority countries, and all what I'm trying to do with radical reform and this new way of dealing with the sources is also connected to this. Remember that when it started, many people were saying, oh, what about the Islamists? What about political Islam? And then, after studying what was happening in Tunisia, in Egypt, in other countries, it was quite clear that these young women and men were not Islamists. They were citizens, young and not so young, saying three things. First, we don't want you to stay here. They were saying to the dictator, get out of here. We don't want. Erhal in Arabic, dégage in French. And this is what was said in Tunisia, saying to the dictator, we don't want you, and we don't want the regime. The second thing which was important is we want freedom and democracy. We want to choose our leaders. And the third thing that they were asking is dignity. We want to be dignified and to be treated with dignity. Something which is quite interesting is that very quickly what was said in the West was, wow, they are like us. That's good. These are progressive men and women. And you know what? What was quite interesting in the media, very often we forgot that they were Muslims. It's as if when they are like us, they should be less Muslim to be like us, which in fact, they were not acting against Islam, they were acting as young and not so young Muslims, acting for dignity, freedom, democracy, and no dictatorship. Which is exactly the essence of what I have been saying for 25 years in the West. Your fellow Muslim citizens want exactly what you want, dignity, justice, and freedom. So if you listen to what is said there, you understand what is have been said here. And if you are unable to listen to your fellow citizens in the way they want to be treated here as human beings, and not to have this culturalizing every discussion, it's as if when we have social problems with young Belgian citizens, it's because they are Muslims or they are Moroccan or they are Turkish. No, it's because we don't have a social policy dealing with schools, dealing with justice, dealing with employment. We have a problem and we need social justice and we need social policies. We don't need discussion about religious belonging. We need what is the policy that you are going to implement in the country. What are you doing with suburbs and marginalization and violence? This is what is needed. So we should stop culturalizing. In fact, what happened in the Middle East and in North African country is what was revealing. When we stopped talking about them and they were like us, we forgot that, in fact, they want the same things and they have the same objectives as us, being Muslims in Muslim majority countries. So this was the starting point of the story. And then what happened is that after the processes and the elections, we had a new concern. So the majority trends there were Islamists. from political Islam. And we started asking, oh, in Nahda in Tunisia and the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, they are now gaining, and some were saying, look at this, we give them freedom, or they got freedom, and now they are voting for political Islam. And the point is that we started to have this discussion, this polarized discussion between secularists and Islamists in Tunisia and in Egypt. And at the end of the day, we are exactly at a point where we need now, and part of the book that I wrote on this was really to say, this is exactly where the contemporary Muslim conscience is facing its deepest crisis. It's not coming from the West. It's coming from within, where the people are struggling for structure or the structure of the state and not coming to the deep question of our time, which is, what is going to be your educational policy? What is going to be your economic policy? What is going to be your way of dealing with justice? Instead of just coming about the structure of the state, we have challenges. Why don't you come to the deep discussion and stop fighting on legitimacy? Because by just opposing yourself or opposing the others, it's just a way to legitimize. So you have Islamists saying to the secularists, you are westernized and we are the guardians of the tradition. And on the other side, you have secularists saying to the Islamists, you are religious, you are promoting theocracy, and we are modern. And both sides are getting legitimacy by the criticism, not by being self-critical and not by coming with a new project. And this is what we need to face. And this is why you understand the very essence of the radical reform, which is come to the right questions. And at the same time, us in the West, we have a very important role to play by saying we want to question the objectives. What are you going to achieve as the main question? And this is what I'm advocating in the text by saying, and this is the second point quickly, is there are lots of questions that are important. First, we need to go towards what is now called the civil state and not to be obsessed with a very close understanding of what could be an Islamic state is the civil state. And you can see now, and it started in Turkey, but also in Algeria, in Morocco, in Egypt, in Tunisia, people are talking about the civil state, Dawla Madaniya, meaning we can be inspired by our tradition, we can be inspired by our value, but the main point is not to go towards a state that is going to be discriminatory or being just exclusive for the Muslims and not for the others. So we have to deal with a democratic state, an open state. But having said that, there are questions that are important. When it comes, for example, to the economic policy and the vision for the future, because you will not get, I'm finishing, I'm still in my time, I think. Now I'm adding a few minutes. Quickly, what is important is to get it right. You are not going to get true, transparent democracies in the Middle East, in North Africa, if you don't get economic stability. So are we going to be happy just to have democracies under control? Because there are big questions now. It's not, if you just deal with the Arab Spring, as it is called, through the political side, and you don't get it right, we are facing now in the Middle East competitions between China, India, the United States of America. They are competing, and for example, over the last 7 years, China multiplied by 8 its trade and relationship. So this is, I thought it was 7, I came back to the figures, it's by 8, so it's a very important presence. And you can see in Syria that Russia and China, they don't want Bashar al-Assad to leave because they have interest there. So if you don't get something which is which kind of economic policy, and this is where I would like the new democracies there, the new Middle East, to deal much more with a South-South relationship, to open more towards East and not only to be obsessed with the hyperpower of the United States of America or the Europeans. Are they going to do this?